The shipping manifest didn't lie, but wives did. Michael Hartwell stared at the computer screen in his cramped customs office, watching the cursor blink next to a name that made his coffee taste like ash. Emergency contact, Celia Hartwell. His wife's signature, bold and confident, scrawled across documents for Knox and Varner Limited, a company he'd never heard her mention in 15 years of marriage. The Homeland Security flag had seemed routine when it landed on his desk that Tuesday morning. Container KNX5 4471, rerouted from the Caribbean Princess cruise ship, carrying decorative antiques with incomplete customs declarations. Standard procedure: audit the paperwork, trace the chain of custody, file the report. But buried in the manifest was his wife's name, listed as passenger cargo coordinator for a conference cruise she'd taken 3 months ago. Michael pulled up the archived shipping logs, his fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. 22 years in freight and customs had taught him that discrepancies weren't accidents. They were breadcrumbs leading to bigger problems. The timeline matched perfectly with Celia's 5-day travel industry conference in March, the one she'd been so excited about. He cross-referenced the container ID with the cruise ship's passenger manifest. There she was, Celia M. Hartwell, cabin 7244. But the interesting part wasn't her name. It was the shared billing address for the cabin. 2 passengers, 1 invoice. The second name made his stomach drop. Derek Knox, age 41, listed occupation, import consultant. Michael sat back in his chair, processing what he was seeing. His wife hadn't just gone on a cruise alone. She'd shared a cabin with a man whose company was now flagged for customs violations. A man whose last name matched the shipping firm in the manifest. He opened a new browser tab and searched for Derek Knox. LinkedIn profile popped up immediately. Private contractor specializing in international trade logistics. The photo showed a man with confident eyes and an expensive smile, the kind of guy who probably wore cologne to the gym. Professional summary mentioned extensive experience in Caribbean import-export operations. Michael's phone buzzed. Text from Celia. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. He stared at the message, then looked back at the shipping manifest. His wife was scheduled to be at her office until midnight, according to her calendar, but Derek Knox had submitted customs paperwork this morning from a warehouse address 15 minutes from Celia's workplace. Rather than call her immediately, Michael did what 22 years in logistics had trained him to do. He gathered more data. The customs database showed 3 other containers linked to Knox and Varner Limited in the past 6 months. All had originated from cruise ship cargo holds. All had been cleared through expedited processing, the kind that required an inside contact at the customs office or a passenger coordinator with legitimate access. Michael pulled up the medical insurance statements from their joint account. March through May showed unusual activity. Claims filed at a medical center downtown, not their usual family practice. Obstetrics and gynecology. Prenatal vitamins covered under prescription benefits. His hands went cold. Celia had been complaining about stomach issues lately. Said she was stressed from work, mentioned seeing a specialist. But these weren't gastroenterology visits. They were pregnancy appointments. Michael walked to the small bathroom attached to his office and splashed cold water on his face. In the mirror, he saw a man who looked older than his 39 years. Thinning brown hair, wire-rimmed glasses, the soft build of someone who spent too much time behind a desk. Not the kind of man who inspired grand passion or dangerous affairs. He returned to his desk and opened his personal laptop. If Celia was pregnant, there would be evidence at home. Credit card statements showing purchases she hadn't mentioned. Maybe a doctor's bag or medications. But first, he needed to know more about Derek Knox. Michael used his customs access to run a full background check. Derek's business address was a warehouse in the industrial district. His import license showed multiple violations over the past 2 years, minor infractions that had been resolved with small fines. The kind of pattern that suggested someone working right at the edge of legal boundaries. A business partnership filing from last year showed Derek had co-founded Knox and Varner Limited with someone named Patricia Varner. But when Michael searched for Patricia Varner, he found an obituary dated 8 months ago. Chest cancer, survived by no immediate family. Derek Knox was running a business using a dead woman's name. Michael's desk phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID. Amanda Beck, the corporate attorney who'd helped him with property transfers when his sister died 3 years ago. Michael? I hope you don't mind me calling directly. I've been meaning to check in. Actually, Amanda, your timing is perfect. I might need some legal advice. Hypothetically speaking. Hypothetically is my favorite kind of speaking. What's the situation? Michael hesitated. Amanda was the only person who knew about the trust fund he'd set up after inheriting his sister's estate. She'd been the one who suggested protecting his assets in a separate legal entity, just in case his government job ever became liability. If someone discovered their spouse was involved in potentially illegal activities, what would be the smartest way to protect themselves legally? Amanda's pause stretched long enough for Michael to wonder if the call had dropped. Michael, are you in some kind of trouble? I don't know yet, but I might be soon. Then you need to be very careful about your next moves. Document everything, but don't confront anyone until you understand the full scope of what you're dealing with. And Michael, if this involves federal customs violations, you need to protect yourself before you protect anyone else. After hanging up, Michael returned to the shipping manifest. He printed out copies of all the documents, storing them in a folder marked KNXV 4471 Audit. Then he used the customs database to flag Knox and Varner Lutid for a full compliance review. The request would trigger an automatic investigation within 30 days. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Celia. Forgot to mention, girls' night Thursday, probably staying at Jenny's. Michael pulled up the calendar on his phone. Thursday was 2 days away. If Celia was planning to be out of the house, it might be the perfect opportunity to search for evidence of her pregnancy and her relationship with Derek Knox. He spent the rest of the afternoon reviewing shipping manifests, but his mind kept returning to the insurance claims. Prenatal appointments meant she was at least a few months along. If she'd gotten pregnant during the March cruise, she'd be close to her second trimester by now. At 6 o'clock, Michael closed his computer and headed home to their two-story colonial in Mount Pleasant. The house they'd bought together 8 years ago, back when Celia's cruise industry job seemed glamorous and his customs position felt secure, before the mortgage payments became a burden and their conversations became routine. Celia's car wasn't in the driveway. Her text had said she was working late, but Michael found himself wondering if she was really at the office or meeting Derek Knox at his warehouse. Inside, the house felt different somehow. Michael had always been observant, a professional requirement in his line of work. But now he was looking at his own home like a crime scene. The mail stacked neatly on the kitchen counter. The coffee mugs in the sink, both marked with lipstick. 2 mugs when Celia claimed she'd been rushing out the door that morning. He climbed the stairs to their bedroom and opened Celia's jewelry box. Underneath her everyday earrings, he found a receipt from a pharmacy downtown. Prenatal vitamins. Purchased 2 weeks ago. Next to it, a business card. Derek Knox, import consultant, with a handwritten note on the back. Thursday, 8 p.m., usual place. Thursday. The same night, Celia claimed she was having girls' night with Jenny. Michael sat on the edge of their bed, holding the business card. The usual place suggested this wasn't their first meeting. How long had this been going on? Had the pregnancy been planned, or was it an accident that had complicated their affair? His phone rang. Celia's name appeared on the screen. Hey, honey, just wanted to let you know I'm grabbing dinner with the team before finishing up this manifest review. Probably won't be home until 11. Manifest review? Oh, passenger cargo coordination stuff. Super boring. Michael felt a chill run down his spine. She was lying so casually, using terminology from his own job to make her deception sound believable. Which cruise line? Caribbean Princess. Why? The same ship that had carried container KNXV 4471. The same ship where she'd shared a cabin with Derek Knox 3 months ago. Just curious. Have a good evening. After hanging up, Michael opened his laptop and began documenting everything he'd discovered. The shipping manifest, the insurance claims, the pharmacy receipt, the business card. He photographed each piece of evidence and uploaded them to a secure folder in his email account. Then he called Amanda Beck. I need to see you tomorrow morning, he said when she answered. And Amanda, you were right about protecting my assets. It's time to activate that trust. Michael, what exactly have you found? Enough to know that my wife is pregnant with another man's child, and they're both involved in customs fraud that could destroy my career. Amanda's sharp intake of breath told him she understood the seriousness of the situation. Don't do anything tonight. Don't confront her. Don't let on that you know anything. Can you handle that? I've been handling it for 3 months without knowing it. I can handle it for 1 more night. But as Michael sat in his empty house, listening for the sound of Celia's car in the driveway, he realized he was already changing. The mild-mannered customs supervisor who had woken up that morning was being replaced by someone harder, more calculating. someone who understood that survival sometimes required becoming the thing you never thought you'd be. At 11:30 p.m., Celia's key turned in the front door. Michael pretended to be asleep when she slipped into bed beside him. But he lay awake for hours, listening to her breathe and planning his next move. The next morning, Amanda Beck's law office felt like a war room. Michael spread the evidence across her conference table while she reviewed each document with the methodical precision that had made her one of Charleston's most feared corporate attorneys. "This is worse than I thought," Amanda said, setting down the shipping manifest. "If your wife is facilitating customs fraud using her position at the cruise line, and if this Derek Knox character is smuggling high-value goods through passenger cargo, we're looking at federal charges that could include you as a co-conspirator." "How is that possible? I didn't know anything about it." "You're married. Joint finances, shared assets, common address. If they decide to prosecute, they'll argue you should have known. They'll say your position in customs gave you access to information that would have revealed the fraud." Michael felt the walls closing in. "So what do I do?" "First, we protect your assets. The trust we set up when your sister died. We're going to transfer everything into it immediately. House, savings, your pension contributions, everything." "Can we do that legally?" "It's your money and the trust already exists. We're just funding it fully." "Second, you're going to quietly cooperate with the customs investigation you've already initiated." "I haven't initiated anything yet." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "Yes, you have. You're going to go back to your office this morning and formally request a compliance review of Knox and Varner Limited. You're going to do it as a concerned customs official who noticed irregularities in shipping manifests. You're going to create a paper trail that shows you discovered this fraud through your professional duties, not through investigating your wife. And then? Then we let the system work. While the investigation proceeds, we quietly move your assets and prepare for divorce proceedings. By the time your wife realizes what's happening, you'll be legally protected and financially secure." Michael nodded, but something inside him was still burning. "What about her? What about what she's done to me?" Amanda leaned back in her chair, studying his face. "Michael, I've known you for 3 years. You're one of the most decent men I've ever met. But decent men don't usually survive the kind of betrayal you're facing. If you want to come out of this intact, you're going to have to become someone else for a while." "What do you mean?" "I mean, you're going to have to play their game better than they do. You're going to have to be smarter, more ruthless, and more patient than they are. Can you do that?" Michael thought about Celia, lying next to him the night before, her hand resting on a belly that was beginning to show the first signs of another man's child. He thought about Derek Knox's confident smile in his LinkedIn photo, and the casual way they'd both used his name and profession to facilitate their crimes. "Yes," he said, "I can do that." The next few weeks transformed Michael into someone he barely recognized. During the day, he performed his customs duties with meticulous professionalism, building an airtight case against Knox and Varner Limited. The compliance review revealed a sophisticated smuggling operation using cruise ship passenger cargo to import undeclared antiques and luxury goods worth millions of dollars. At night, he became a spy in his own home. Michael installed a small recording device in Celia's car, hidden behind the dashboard where her phone connected to the Bluetooth system. He recovered deleted text messages from their shared phone bill, finding dozens of communications between Celia and Derek that detailed not just their affair, but their plans to implicate Michael in their smuggling operation if they were ever caught. The most damaging text had been sent just 2 days after Michael had initiated the customs review. "He's getting suspicious about work stuff. We might need to accelerate the timeline." Derek's response was chilling. "Don't worry. If this goes sideways, we'll make sure he takes the fall. Corrupt customs official has a nice ring to it." Michael printed every text, every call log, every piece of evidence that showed their conspiracy. But more than that, he began to understand the scope of their betrayal. Celia hadn't just cheated on him. She'd been systematically preparing to destroy his life. The pregnancy wasn't an accident. It was leverage. If Michael ever discovered their affair, she could claim he was an abusive husband, trying to damage her and her unborn child. If he ever discovered their smuggling operation, she could claim he was the mastermind, and she was an unwilling participant. The prenatal appointments weren't just about her health. They were creating a medical record that could be used to portray her as a vulnerable sufferer in need of protection. Michael shared everything with Amanda, who helped him understand the legal implications of each piece of evidence. She also helped him accelerate the asset transfer process, moving their house, savings, and his pension into the trust before Celia realized what was happening. She's going to notice soon, Amanda warned during one of their weekly meetings. The bank statements, the title transfer, the investment account changes. You can't hide this much financial activity forever. I don't need forever, Michael replied. I just need long enough. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in late June. Celia announced she was going to another girls' night, but Michael had been tracking her phone's location for weeks. He knew she was meeting Derek at his warehouse, just like she had every Thursday for the past 2 months. Instead of staying home, Michael drove to the industrial district and parked across the street from Knox and Varner Limited. Through his binoculars, he watched Celia's car pull into the parking lot at exactly 8 o'clock. She wasn't showing much yet, but in the warehouse's fluorescent lighting, he could see the slight curve of her belly as she walked to the entrance. Derek met her at the door, and even from a distance, Michael could see the closeness in their body language. This wasn't just an affair, it was a relationship. They moved together like a couple, comfortable and familiar. Michael sat in his car for 2 hours, watching them through the warehouse windows as they reviewed shipping documents and loaded cargo into containers. They weren't just lovers, they were business partners. Everything they'd built together was based on deception and theft. When Celia finally emerged from the warehouse, Michael was ready. He followed her car at a distance, watching as she stopped at a 24-hour pharmacy before heading home. Through the security cameras he'd installed in their garage, he watched her hide a bag under the front seat of her car before coming inside. "How was girls' night?" he asked when she found him reading in the living room. "Oh, you know how Jenny gets. We talked until way too late." "What did you talk about?" Celia hesitated for just a moment, long enough for Michael to see the calculation in her eyes as she decided how much truth to mix with her lies. "Work stuff, mostly. The cruise industry is going through some changes, new regulations, compliance issues." "Compliance issues?" "Nothing major, just paperwork stuff." Michael nodded and returned to his book, but inside he was burning with rage. She was using terminology from his own profession, trying to sound knowledgeable about regulations that could destroy his career. She was practicing her lies on him, refining her story in case she ever needed to throw him under the bus. The next morning, while Celia was at work, Michael retrieved the bag from her car. Inside were pregnancy vitamins, ultrasound photos, and a manila envelope marked "Insurance Claims, Personal." The ultrasound images showed a baby that was clearly too developed to be his. The dates were wrong by at least 6 weeks. But it was the insurance claims that revealed the true scope of Celia's deception. She'd been filing medical expenses under both their joint insurance and a separate policy through Derek's business, double billing for the same services, creating a paper trail that made it look like Michael was involved in insurance fraud. Michael photographed everything and returned the bag to Celia's car. Then he called Amanda. "It's time," he said. "They're setting me up for insurance fraud on top of everything else. How quickly can we move?" "The divorce papers are ready. The asset transfer is complete. The customs investigation is about to recommend criminal charges against Knox and Varner Limited. We can serve her tonight if you want. I want to confront them first, both of them. I want them to know that I know everything before the legal system destroys them." Amanda was quiet for a long moment. "Michael, that's not smart. You're angry, and angry people make mistakes." "I'm not angry anymore," Michael said, and he realized it was true. The rage had burned itself out over the past month, leaving something colder and more dangerous in its place. "I'm focused." The opportunity came the following Thursday. Michael had been monitoring Derek's warehouse for weeks, learning the patterns of security guards and delivery schedules. He knew that Derek and Celia met there every Thursday evening after the regular workers had gone home. At 7:30, Michael parked his car in an alley behind the warehouse and walked to the employee entrance. His customs badge got him past the security checkpoint. Industrial facilities were used to federal inspectors making surprise visits. Inside, the warehouse was exactly what he'd expected. Rows of shipping containers, some clearly marked for export, others bearing signs of recent arrival. In the center of the space, Derek and Celia were reviewing paperwork at a makeshift desk. Michael watched them for several minutes before stepping into the light. "Don't stop on my account," he said. "I'm just here for the customs inspection." Celia's face went white. Derek reached for something behind the desk, but Michael held up his badge. "I wouldn't do that if I were you, Derek. Attacking a federal officer carries serious penalties." "Michael, what are you doing here?" Celia's voice was shaking, but she was trying to maintain her composure. "I'm doing my job. Knox and Varner Lovett has been flagged for compliance review. I'm here to examine your shipping manifests and cargo documentation. Derek stepped forward, his confident smile slipping. You can't just walk in here without a warrant. Actually, I can. Customs officials have broad authority to inspect facilities engaged in international trade. But you already know that, don't you? You've been counting on it. Michael pulled out a folder containing copies of all the shipping manifests, text messages, and insurance claims he'd collected over the past month. Container KNXV 4471, shipped from the Caribbean Princess on March 15th. Emergency contact, Celia Hartwell. Passenger cargo coordinator, Celia Hartwell. Cabin billing, shared occupancy with Derek Knox. Celia sank into a chair, her hand instinctively moving to her stomach. 3 months later, Celia Hartwell begins filing insurance claims for prenatal care. The father listed on medical documents, unknown, but DNA testing on hair samples recovered from Derek Knox's LinkedIn profile photo, publicly available, by the way, shows a 99.7% probability of paternity. Derek's face had turned red. You can't use that in court. It's illegally obtained evidence. I don't need to use it in court, Michael said calmly. The customs violations are enough to put you away for 10 years. The insurance fraud adds another 5. The conspiracy charges against both of you add 10 more. He turned to Celia, who was crying now. But the betrayal? The lies? The plan to frame me for your crimes? That's just personal. Michael set a legal document on the desk between them. Divorce papers. You're named as a co-defendant in federal fraud charges. Your assets have been frozen pending investigation. The house has been transferred to a legal trust that you have no claim on. Your medical insurance has been canceled due to fraudulent claims. Celia looked up at him with tears streaming down her face. Michael, please, we can work this out. The baby isn't mine, Michael said. And after tonight, neither are you. Derek stepped towards him again, but Michael pulled out his phone and showed them the screen. It was displaying a live video feed from the warehouse security cameras. Everything we've said tonight has been recorded and automatically uploaded to a secure server. If anything happens to me, copies of this conversation and all the evidence I've collected will be sent to the FBI, the Coast Guard, and the Charleston Post and Courier. The silence in the warehouse stretched for almost a minute. Finally, Derek spoke. What do you want? I want you to understand that you're not nearly as smart as you think you are, Michael said. I want you to know that while you were planning to destroy my life, I was systematically documenting every aspect of your crimes. I want you to realize that the mild-mannered customs officer you thought would be an easy scapegoat has just outplayed you at every level. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and Derek, the warehouse you're leasing? It's owned by a subsidiary of my sister's estate, which means it's now owned by the trust that controls my assets. You have 30 days to vacate. Michael walked out of the warehouse and drove home to the house that was no longer his and Celia's, but his alone. Inside, he poured himself a glass of scotch and sat in his living room waiting for the sound of Celia's car in the driveway. She never came home. The next morning, Amanda called with an update. Derek Knox has been arrested on federal smuggling charges. Your wife has retained counsel and is trying to negotiate a plea deal. The customs investigation has been expedited, and additional charges are being filed. What about the divorce? She'll sign. She doesn't have any choice. Her attorney is more interested in keeping her out of prison than fighting over assets she can't touch. Michael hung up the phone and walked through his empty house. It felt different now, not lonely, but peaceful. For the first time in months, he didn't have to wonder what Celia was really doing or who she was really with. 2 weeks later, he received a letter from Celia's attorney. She was requesting visitation rights for the child after it was born, despite the fact that Michael had never claimed paternity. The letter suggested that Michael had been emotionally abusive and had driven her into the arms of another man through his neglect and controlling behavior. Michael handed the letter to Amanda, who read it with a grim smile. She's still trying to control the narrative, Amanda said, even from jail. Jail? Oh, did I forget to mention? Her plea negotiations fell through. She's been charged as a co-conspirator in the smuggling operation and an accessory to fraud. No bail. Michael felt something that might have been satisfaction, but it was too cold to be called happiness. 6 months later, Derek Knox was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. Celia received 8 years, with the possibility of parole in 5 if she cooperated fully with the investigation. The baby was born while she was in custody and placed with Derek's sister in Atlanta. Michael received the birth announcement in the mail, along with a final letter from Celia. In it, she claimed that she had always loved him, that Derek had manipulated her, that she had never meant for things to go so far. She begged him to visit her, to give her another chance when she was released. Michael read the letter once, then fed it into his paper shredder. A year after the arrests, Michael was promoted to Regional Customs Director, largely based on his role in exposing the Knox and Varner smuggling operation. The promotion came with a transfer to Atlanta, which suited him fine. Charleston held too many memories. On his last day in the old office, Michael cleaned out his desk and found the original shipping manifest that had started everything. Container KNXE 4471, with Celia's signature at the bottom. He studied her handwriting for a moment, remembering the woman who had shared his bed for 15 years while planning his destruction. Then he dropped the document in the recycling bin and walked out. That evening, Michael had dinner with Amanda at a restaurant overlooking Charleston Harbor. They could see cruise ships in the distance, their lights reflecting on the dark water. "Any regrets?" Amanda asked. Michael considered the question carefully. "I regret marrying someone I didn't really know. I regret wasting 15 years of my life building something with a person who saw me as a convenience, not a partner. That's not what I meant." Michael looked across the table at the woman who had helped him navigate the most difficult period of his life. Amanda had never asked for anything in return, had never judged him for the darker choices he'd made, had never suggested that he should forgive or forget. "No," he said finally. "I don't regret what I did to them. They made their choices. I just made sure they lived with the consequences." Amanda raised her wine glass. "To consequences. To consequences," Michael agreed. As they left the restaurant, Amanda mentioned that she was also moving to Atlanta. Her firm was opening a new office there, and they needed someone to head the white-collar defense division. "It's a good opportunity," she said. "And Atlanta's a nice city. Good place for new beginnings." Michael walked her to her car, and for a moment they stood in the parking lot. Two people who had been through something that most people would never understand. "Michael," Amanda said, "I want you to know that what you did wasn't just about revenge. What you did was justice. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Revenge is about hurting someone because they hurt you. Justice is about making sure the right thing happens, even when it's difficult. What you did took patience, intelligence, and courage. Don't let anyone tell you it was wrong." 3 years later, Michael was sitting in his new office in Atlanta when his secretary announced that he had a visitor. A young woman in her early 20s walked in, carrying a manila folder. "Mr. Hartwell? My name is Sarah Knox. I think you knew my brother Derek." Michael gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sarah Knox had her brother's eyes, but where Derek's had been calculating and cold, hers were intelligent and direct. "What can I do for you, Miss Knox?" "I wanted to thank you," she said, "and I wanted to give you this." She handed him the manila folder. Inside were legal documents showing that Derek Knox had signed over all his remaining assets to a trust fund for his daughter, the child he'd had with Celia. "Derek asked me to tell you that he understands why you did what you did. He said to tell you that if he'd been in your position, he would have done the same thing." Michael studied the documents. The trust fund would provide for the child's education and medical expenses, but it also included a clause that prevented Celia from accessing any of the money directly. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because Derek also asked me to give you this." Sarah handed him a sealed envelope with his name written in Derek's handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a brief message. "You were right. We underestimated you. The child deserves better than what we gave her. Make sure she gets it. DK." Michael looked up at Sarah. "What does he want me to do?" "He wants you to serve as the trust administrator. He says you're the only person involved in this situation who acted with integrity throughout." Michael leaned back in his chair, processing what he was being asked. Derek Knox, the man who had destroyed his marriage and tried to destroy his career, was now asking him to protect the child who had been born from that betrayal. "I'll need to think about it," he said finally. Sarah nodded and stood to leave. "He said you'd say that. He also said to tell you that this isn't about forgiveness or redemption. It's about a little girl who didn't choose any of this." After Sarah left, Michael sat alone in his office, holding the legal documents and thinking about the strange turns his life had taken. 5 years ago, he'd been a mild-mannered customs supervisor with a cheating wife and a modest life. Now he was a regional director with significant authority, financial security, and a chance to shape the future of a child who was, in some ways, as much a sufferer of Derek and Celia's crimes as he had been. He called Amanda, who was now a partner in her own firm. "They want me to manage a trust fund for Derek Knox's daughter," he explained. "The daughter he had with your ex-wife." "Yes." Amanda was quiet for a long moment. "Michael, you don't owe them anything. You've already paid a higher price than anyone should have to pay. This isn't about them. It's about a 5-year-old girl who's going to grow up knowing that her father is in prison and her mother abandoned her. And you think you can fix that?" "I think I can make sure she has opportunities they never gave her. I think I can make sure she learns that actions have consequences, but also that some people will still try to do the right thing even when it's complicated." Michael signed the trust administrator papers the next day. Over the following years, he used the money Derek had left to pay for the girl's education, medical care, and, eventually, college tuition. He never met her directly. That wasn't part of the arrangement. But he received annual reports on her progress. She was smart, like her father, but she was also kind, which she hadn't learned from either of her parents. She excelled in school, stayed out of trouble, and grew up to become a social worker, specializing in helping children from broken families. When she graduated from college, she sent Michael a letter through her Aunt Sarah. In it, she thanked him for his role in her education and told him that she understood why her parents had gone to prison. She said she was grateful that someone had made sure she had chances they never deserved. At the bottom of the letter, she'd written, "My father told me that you taught him the difference between being clever and being wise. I hope I can be wise." Michael kept that letter in his desk drawer next to the promotion certificate that had started his new life in Atlanta. Sometimes, late at night in his office, he would read it and remember the man he'd been before Celia's betrayal and the man he'd become afterward. He'd never remarried, though he'd had opportunities. Amanda had moved back to Charleston after 3 years in Atlanta, but they'd remained close friends. She'd suggested more than once that they could be more than friends if he was interested. "I'm not sure I'm capable of trusting someone that completely again," he'd told her. "You trust me," she'd pointed out. "That's different. We've been through something together. We've seen each other at our worst and still chosen to stay. That's exactly why it would work." Maybe she was right. Maybe trust had to be earned through crisis rather than built through courtship. Maybe the kind of partnership he needed was one forged in fire rather than flowers. But for now, Michael was content with his work, his friendship with Amanda, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that he'd survived the worst betrayal of his life and emerged stronger. He'd learned that mild-mannered men could be dangerous when pushed too far, that patience was more powerful than anger, and that sometimes the best revenge was simply refusing to be destroyed. On the 10th anniversary of Celia's arrest, Michael received a phone call from a parole officer in South Carolina. Celia Hartwell was being released early for good behavior and cooperation with ongoing investigations. She'd requested his contact information, claiming she wanted to make amends for her actions. Michael listened to the message, then deleted it without calling back. Later that evening, he was having dinner with Amanda at their favorite restaurant in Atlanta when his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I know I have no right to contact you, but I need you to know I'm sorry. I've spent 5 years thinking about what I did to you, and I understand now that I was wrong about everything. If you're willing to listen, I'd like to explain. Celia." Michael showed the message to Amanda, who read it with a frown. "What are you going to do?" "Nothing," Michael said. "There's nothing she can say that would change what happened. There's nothing she can explain that would make it forgivable. She might be different now. Prison changes people. Prison didn't change her. Consequences changed her. If she'd never been caught, she'd still be the same person who was willing to destroy my life to protect her affair." Michael deleted the text and turned off his phone. "You know what the strangest part is?" he said to Amanda. "I'm grateful it happened." "Grateful? If Celia hadn't betrayed me, I'd still be married to someone who didn't love me, working a job I'd outgrown, living a life that was slowly suffocating me. Her betrayal forced me to become someone I never knew I could be." Amanda reached across the table and touched his hand. "You were always that person, Michael. You just needed a reason to let him out." 2 weeks later, Michael was reviewing quarterly reports when his assistant announced that someone named Jenny Morrison was on the phone. The name took him a moment to place. Jenny had been Celia's best friend, the one whose house Celia had supposedly been visiting during her Thursday night meetings with Derek. "Mr. Hartwell, this is Jenny Morrison. I hope you remember me." "I remember you, Jenny. What can I do for you?" I wanted to call because Celia reached out to me when she was released. She's been staying with her sister in Colombia, but she asked me to contact you. Michael felt a familiar coldness settle in his chest. I'm not interested in hearing from Celia. I understand that, but Michael, I need you to know something. I never knew about Derek. I never knew about any of it until after the arrests. I figured that out eventually. Celia told me you blamed me for covering for her, but I swear I never knew she was cheating. When she said she was at my house, I thought she was just, I don't know, going through something, having some kind of midlife crisis. Michael could hear the genuine distress in Jenny's voice. I never blamed you, Jenny. You were as much a sufferer of her lies as I was. She's different now, Jenny continued. Prison changed her. She talks about you constantly, about how wrong she was, about how she wants to make things right. There's no making this right. I know. But Michael, I think she's dangerous. The words hit Michael like a physical blow. What do you mean? She's obsessed with you, with the idea that you orchestrated some kind of elaborate revenge against her. She thinks you planned everything from the beginning, that you somehow set up Derek to fall in love with her just so you could destroy them both. Michael felt a chill run down his spine. That's insane. I know it's insane, but she believes it. She's convinced herself that you're some kind of criminal mastermind who destroyed her life for fun. She talks about getting even, about showing everyone who you really are. Jenny, if you think she's a threat, I think she's going to try to hurt you, Michael. And I think she's going to try to use that little girl to do it. The call ended with Jenny promising to contact the police if Celia made any specific threats. But Michael knew that wouldn't be enough. If Celia was truly unstable, if she was planning some kind of retaliation, he needed to be prepared. He called Amanda immediately. She's out and she's apparently convinced herself that I'm the villain in this story, he explained. Michael, you documented everything. If she tries to make trouble, we can destroy her in court. What if she doesn't go through the courts? What if she decides to handle this herself? Amanda was quiet for a moment. Do you think she's capable of violence? I don't know what she's capable of anymore. I thought I knew her for 15 years, and I was completely wrong about who she was. That night, Michael activated the security system he'd installed in his Atlanta home and began carrying his service weapon again, a privilege that came with his federal position. He also hired a private investigator to monitor Celia's activities and report any attempts to contact him or locate his address. The investigator's first report was disturbing. Celia had been asking detailed questions about Michael's job, his home address, his routine. She'd also been researching Derek Knox's daughter, trying to find out who was managing the child's trust fund. 2 days later, Michael received another text. I know you're having me watched. We need to talk, Michael. There are things about Derek you don't know. Things that will change how you see everything. Michael forwarded the message to Amanda and the private investigator, then blocked Celia's number. But at 3 a.m. that night, his home security system detected movement in his backyard. Michael checked the cameras and saw a figure near his fence, too far away to identify clearly. By the time he called the police, whoever it was had disappeared. The next morning, he found a manila envelope tucked under his car's windshield wiper. Inside was a single photograph. Derek Knox's daughter at her elementary school playground with a red circle drawn around her face in marker. Michael called Amanda immediately. She's escalating, Amanda said after reviewing the photo. This isn't just about revenge anymore. She's trying to terrorize you. What are my options? Legally? We can get a restraining order, but that's just a piece of paper. If she's willing to violate parole by stalking you, she's probably willing to violate a court order too. Michael studied the photograph of the little girl. She looked happy, playing on the swings with other children. She had no idea that her biological parents were both criminals, or that one of them was now using her as a weapon against the man who'd been protecting her future. Amanda, I need you to do something for me. I need you to contact Derek Knox in prison. I need to know if Celia has been in touch with him, and I need to know if he's told her about the trust fund. Michael, what are you thinking? I'm thinking that if Celia knows I'm managing her daughter's money, she's going to try to use that against me somehow. And I'm thinking that Derek might be the only person who can stop her. The response from Derek came through the prison mail system within a week. His letter was brief and to the point. Michael, Celia has been writing to me since she got out. She wants custody of our daughter. She thinks if she can prove you're an unfit trust administrator, she can get control of the money and the child. I told her to leave you alone, but she's not listening. She blames you for everything that happened to us. Watch yourself. She's not the same person you married. Derek. At the bottom of the letter, Derek had added a phone number and a time. Call my sister Sarah at this number tomorrow at 2 p.m. She needs to know what's happening. Michael made the call from his office. Sarah Knox sounded tired and worried. Mr. Hartwell, I'm glad you called. I've been getting strange calls from Celia asking about my niece. She wants to know where we live, what school the girl attends, who's been paying for her expenses. What did you tell her? Nothing. Derek warned me about her years ago, but Mr. Hartwell, I'm scared. This woman sounds unstable, and she's asking very specific questions about a 5-year-old child. Sarah, I need you to take your niece somewhere safe for a few days, maybe visit relatives out of state. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Is she really that dangerous? I don't know, but I'm not willing to take chances with a child's safety. After hanging up, Michael called his private investigator. I need you to find Celia and keep eyes on her 24/7. If she leaves Colombia, if she tries to travel, I need to know immediately. But it was too late. The investigator's report came in that evening. Celia Hartwell had rented a car and driven to Atlanta. Her last known location was a hotel 3 miles from Michael's office. Michael spent that night in his office building, which had better security than his home. He called Amanda, who insisted on staying with him. This is insane, she said, reviewing the security footage from his house. She's been watching your place for hours. She wants me to know she's there. She wants me to be scared. Are you scared? Michael considered the question. No, I'm angry. 5 years ago, she tried to destroy my life through lies and manipulation. Now she's trying to do it through intimidation and threats, but I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago. What are you going to do? I'm going to end this. Michael called Celia's hotel at midnight. This is Michael Hartwell. I know you're staying there. I know you want to talk to me. Meet me at the Warehouse District tomorrow night at 9 p.m., the same place where this all started. Michael, how did you... I'll be at the Knox and Varner warehouse. Come alone. Or don't come at all. He hung up before she could respond. Amanda stared at him. You're seriously going to meet with her? After she's been stalking you? I'm going to finish what she started, but I won't be alone. You'll be there with backup recording everything. When this is over, she'll either leave me alone or she'll go back to prison. The next evening, Michael arrived at the abandoned Knox and Varner warehouse an hour early. The building had been empty since Derek's arrest, but Michael still had keys from when he'd served the eviction notice 5 years earlier. Amanda was positioned across the street with 2 private security guards and recording equipment. If anything went wrong, they had clear sight lines and immediate backup. At exactly 9 p.m., Celia's rental car pulled into the parking lot. She'd looked different from the last time he'd seen her. Thinner, harder, with short gray hair and lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. Prison had aged her more than 5 years. Hello, Michael. Celia. They stood in the same spot where he'd confronted her and Derek 5 years earlier. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. You look good, she said. Success suits you. What do you want? I want my daughter back, and I want you to stop interfering in my life. Your daughter is being raised by people who love her and can provide for her. You're a convicted felon who abandoned her when she was born. I was in prison because of you. You were in prison because you committed crimes. Celia stepped closer, and Michael could see the rage in her eyes. The same rage that had probably been building for 5 years. You set us up. You planned everything from the beginning. You somehow knew about Derek and you manipulated the situation to destroy us. Celia, that's not... Don't lie to me, she screamed. I've had 5 years to think about this. There's no way you just stumbled onto that shipping manifest. You knew about Derek before you found those papers. You knew about the pregnancy before you saw the insurance claims. You planned it all. Michael realized that she genuinely believed what she was saying. In her mind, she'd rewritten history to make herself the sufferer and him the villain. You're right, he said quietly. Celia's eyes widened. What? You're right. I did plan it. I knew about Derek from the moment you met him. I knew about the pregnancy before you did. I orchestrated the entire thing. I knew it. I knew you were... I'm also recording this conversation, Michael continued, pulling out his phone. And what you just heard was a lie designed to get you to admit that you're delusional and potentially dangerous. Celia's face went white. You fool. The truth is exactly what I told you 5 years ago. You cheated on me, got pregnant with another man's child, and tried to frame me for your crimes. I discovered it through legitimate means and used legal channels to protect myself. That's not revenge, that's survival. You destroyed my life. You destroyed your own life. I just made sure you didn't destroy mine too. Celia pulled something from her purse, a small Colt that Michael recognized as a .22 caliber pistol. You're going to call whoever controls my daughter's trust fund, and you're going to transfer custody to me. Then you're going to disappear from our lives forever. Michael raised his hand slowly. Celia, put the tool down. This isn't going to solve anything. It's going to solve everything. I'm going to get my daughter back, and you're going to pay for what you did to me. What I did to you was nothing compared to what you did to yourself. Look at where you are, Celia. Look at what you've become. You're threatening an unarmed man with a tool because you can't accept responsibility for your own choices. Shut up. Your daughter deserves better than this. She deserves better than a mother who chooses violence over accountability. Michael could see Amanda and the security team moving into position outside the warehouse. He just needed to keep Celia talking for a few more minutes. Do you know what your daughter wants to be when she grows up? He asked. What? She wants to be a teacher. She's smart, kind, and well-adjusted despite everything you and Derek put her through. She's going to college on a full scholarship next year. She's going to have opportunities neither of you ever gave her. You don't know anything about her. I know everything about her. I've been protecting her future for 5 years while you've been in prison feeling sorry for yourself. Celia's hand was shaking now, the tool wavering as her emotions overwhelmed her. She doesn't even know my name, Celia whispered. Because you chose Derek Knox over your family. Because you chose crime over honesty. Because you chose to destroy everything good in your life for short-term gratification. I loved him. You loved the excitement. You loved the danger. You loved feeling like you were getting away with something. But you didn't love him enough to be honest about it. And you didn't love me enough to divorce me before starting the affair. Tears were streaming down Celia's face now, but she still held the tool. I can't take it back, she said. No, you can't, but you can stop making it worse. You can put down the tool and walk away. You can let your daughter live her life without the burden of knowing her mother is a violent criminal. And what about you? What do you get out of this? I get to go home to a life I built without you. I get to wake up every morning knowing that I survived the worst thing that ever happened to me and came out stronger. I get to know that a little girl has opportunities because I chose to be better than the people who tried to destroy me. Celia lowered the tool slowly. I hate you. I know, but that's your burden to carry, not mine. Security moved in quickly, disarming Celia and restraining her until police arrived. She was arrested for stalking, maltreatment, and attack with a deadly weapon. Her parole was revoked, and she was sentenced to serve the remainder of her original term, plus additional time for the new charges. Michael never saw her again. 6 months later, he received a letter from Derek Knox's daughter. She was graduating high school as valedictorian and had been accepted to several prestigious universities. She wanted to thank him for the opportunities the trust fund had provided, and she wanted him to know that she understood why her parents had made the choices they did. I don't hate them, she wrote, but I'm grateful I didn't become them. Thank you for helping me become someone better. At the bottom of the letter was a graduation photo. She looked nothing like either of her parents. She looked like herself, confident and hopeful, and completely unaware of how close she'd come to being destroyed by their legacy. Michael framed the photo and placed it on his desk next to his promotion certificate. Then he picked up his phone and called Amanda. Are you free for dinner tonight? He asked. Always. What's the occasion? I was thinking it might be time to stop living in the past. Michael Hartwell, are you asking me on a date? I'm asking if you'd like to find out what our future looks like together. It's about time, Amanda said, and Michael could hear the smile in her voice. That evening, they had dinner at the same restaurant where they'd toasted consequences 10 years earlier. But this time, they weren't looking backward. They were looking forward to whatever came next. Any regrets now? Amanda asked, echoing her question from a decade ago. Michael thought about Celia in prison, about Derek serving the rest of his sentence, about a young woman who was about to start college with no idea how many people had fought to protect her future. Just one, he said. What's that? I regret waiting so long to ask you out. Amanda laughed, and for the first time in 15 years, Michael felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. 2 years later, they were married in a small ceremony attended by close friends and colleagues. Derek Knox's daughter sent a card congratulating them and thanking Michael again for the role he'd played in her life. Michael kept the card in his wallet next to a photo of his wedding day. Sometimes, when he was having a difficult day at work or dealing with complex cases, he would look at both images and remember that good things could come from terrible circumstances if you were patient enough to wait for them and strong enough to fight for them. He never heard from Celia again. According to official records, she served her full sentence and was released to a halfway house in another state. But she never contacted him, never tried to reach her daughter, never attempted to interfere in the life Michael had built. Whether that was because she'd finally learned her lesson or because she was afraid of the consequences, Michael didn't know and didn't care. He'd moved beyond the need for revenge or closure. He'd found something better: peace. On the 10th anniversary of his confrontation with Celia and Derek at the warehouse, Michael received an unexpected phone call. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize, but when he answered, the voice was familiar. Mr. Hartwell, this is Dr. Sarah Knox Thompson. I wanted to call and tell you that my niece graduated from medical school yesterday. Michael sat back in his chair, processing the news. Dr. Thompson? She took my married name when I adopted her legally. She's going to be a pediatrician. She wants to work with children from troubled families. That's wonderful. Mr. Hartwell, she knows about the trust fund now. She knows what you did for her. She asked me to tell you that she'd like to meet you someday, if you're willing. Michael looked across his office at the framed photo of Derek Knox's daughter graduating high school. In a few days, he'd need to replace it with her medical school graduation photo. I'd like that, he said. She also wanted me to give you a message. She said to tell you that she understands now why her father respected you, even after everything that happened. She said you taught him that integrity isn't about never making mistakes. It's about taking responsibility when you do. After the call ended, Michael sat in his office thinking about the strange journey that had brought him to this moment. 15 years ago, he'd been a mild-mannered customs supervisor with a cheating wife and a modest life. Today, he was a respected federal administrator with a loving wife and the knowledge that he'd helped shape the future of a young woman who was going to spend her life helping children. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed him had ultimately led to the best parts of his life, not because he'd sought revenge, but because he'd chosen to be better than the people who'd tried to tear him down. That evening, Michael went home to Amanda and told her about the phone call. So she wants to meet you? Apparently. How do you feel about that? Proud, Michael said, and realized it was true. I'm proud of who she became despite where she came from. You should be. You played a role in that. We all played a role. Sarah Knox raised her. The schools educated her. The trust fund provided opportunities. I just made sure she had choices her parents never gave her. Amanda kissed him softly. That's what good people do, Michael. They create possibilities for others, even when they've been hurt themselves. Later that night, as Michael was falling asleep next to the woman who'd stood by him through the darkest period of his life, he thought about the different paths his story could have taken. He could have become bitter and vengeful. He could have let Celia's betrayal poison his ability to trust anyone. He could have spent his life looking backward instead of forward. Instead, he'd chosen to become someone worth respecting. Someone who could sleep peacefully knowing that his actions had made the world a little bit better, even when it would have been easier to make it worse. Michael Hartwell closed his eyes and dreamed about the future, about the young doctor who was going to help heal children, about the life he'd built with Amanda, about all the good things that were still possible when people chose integrity over revenge.